Hi, today we're going to try something simple. It is a pretension precast concrete beam. We use a lot of these in Iowa for our bridges. Essentially, it's just a beam that can go up to typically about 140 feet. It can span between a pier. Here's another pier. The end of the bridge is an abutment. And what happens is inside there's high tension steel strands, and you would place these and pull them apart really tight. Pour the concrete, let the concrete cure, and then once the concrete's hardened, you'd cut the strands at the end, and it puts compression right here. It puts a force on the end, and it keeps the concrete in compression, which really helps out the beam. It makes it a lot stronger. So if you want to look at some of standards that we use, you could go to something like Iowa Department of Transportation. There's all kinds of standards on here for bridges and road design. I guess I spelt it wrong. But if you go to B, Bridge and Structures, Bridge and Culvert Standards, English Bridge Culvert Standard or Bridge Standards, you can see all the different standards, and we have them in MicroStation, so if you want to download them, or PDFs. And you can see if you go down to beams, we have all these different things, intermediate diaphragms, all these different kinds of beams. Today we're going to try and do a D-beam. And a D-beam looks something like, well, here's the standard, and there's a whole bunch of them. So we'll go down, and I went too far. Those are the BTCs. There's a D-beam. And if you look at it, it's a little tough to see in this screen, but let's just zoom in a little bit. All right. These don't have any strands, so we'll go to the next page. What I'm showing you here are the strands in the beam, and you'll have some strands on the bottom, and you'll have these things called drape strands, and there's reasons for it. But what we want to just do is we want to draw this cross section over here. The beam is 4'6" high. It's got a 1'10" wide bottom bulb or a flange, bottom flange. This is the top flange. It's 20 inches high and 6 inches deep. So we're going to just draw that. So I'll bring up my SketchUp file. Here's what you usually get when you start a new SketchUp. We'll get rid of the young lady. And I'm going to import a picture I made of the D-beam. And just put it right here. And it's not to scale. I can make it to scale, but I don't need it to scale. So there's the beam I want to draw, and I'm going to just use something simple. I'm going to draw a little rectangle. And this is typically x-axis, the red, and this is typically the y-axis, if I remember correctly. So down in this corner, I want to type in, well, I want the thing to be, the bottom bulb is what, 22 inches? I'm going to say 22 inches, comma, and then I want the height to be 4.5 feet. And remember, you have to put a little foot thing in, if you can see it in the bottom right, and that'll draw my little box. So that's to scale. I want the reverse face, because this is the front face, the other side is the inside face. So what do I want to do? Well, I'm going to start with guides, because it's pretty easy to do. So I'll go to the tape measure tool. I'll just rest it on this line here, and I'll go to the center. Right? When it turns blue, you hit the center. Now, what do I want to do? Well, the top is 6 inches, so I'm going to drag this down 6 inches. I know the top is 1'8", so that means there's 10 inches on either side, 10 inches. There's this little dip down here of 1 inch that goes to this part is called the web, so I'm going to just go down 1 inch. On the bottom bulb or flange, I've got it 8 inches, so I'm going to take this piece here and go up 8 inches. To this little point here is 7.5 inches, so I'll go 7.5 inches, 7.5, and I'm all typing it in the bottom right corner. The web is 7 inches wide, so I'm going to go over 3 inches, 3.5 actually, on one side, and 3.5 on the other side. And I think I have everything, so I can start drawing. I'm going to start up here, and that's this point right here, and draw down. intersection. This is the intersection right here. Go down to here, which is this point right there. And now I got to be careful. I don't want to go to this point. I want to go outside. And then I already have a line in there, so I don't have to draw it. Now I can go back and start up here, find the intersection, go down to here, go to the web, go down, make sure intersection, outside intersection, and I think I have my beam drawn. So let's get rid of some things. We'll take the eraser. You can delete guides, those little corner lines you don't need. You can delete guides one at a time, or you can go up to Edit, Delete Guides. Still got that little piece up there. But there's my beam, and I think it's right. I have these little chamfers in the corner, 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch, and it helps you get the beam out of the form. So let's put those in. So I'll just go over 0.75. You can also type in 3 divided by 4, which is 0.75, whichever way you want to do it, 0.75. Right now I'm drawing in inches. That's the scale I'm using. So I'll go over here, draw the little, oops, see I screwed that up, so I'll hit escape. Get rid of that piece and that piece. Go over here. And get rid of that piece. And I'll get rid of the guides. Now I've got my beam. Let's check it out. So I can go to my dimension tool. Let's see if I got the right height. 4'6", looks good. Do I have the width? 1'8". Yep. Do I have the bottom bulb? Let's see here. 1'10". Yep. And 7 inches. It looks pretty good. So what I want to do is rotate it up. And if you use the rotate tool, it tries to match. So this is flat on the ground, perpendicular to the z-axis. But I want it to be perpendicular to this red axis. So I just fly around for a while or rotate around a while so I get it to turn red. Hold the shift key and it'll keep it locked there. I can go back and I find the middle. Doesn't have to be the middle, but it's easier. So I click on that, click 90 degrees, and I rotate it 90 degrees. Next thing I probably want to do is I want to make it a component that you can use forever. So I'm going to, once it's all selected, I'll right click, make component. I'm going to call it a D-beam so I can add it to my collection forever. I want to set the component axis so that whenever I place this thing, this is the point I'm going to be placing. Midpoint, I want the red axis to go that direction, thank you, and I want the green axis to go that way, and create it. So now it's a component. If I wanted to bring my component library out, it's a little hard to see, but there's a D-beam and I can just click on it and I get another D-beam. Well, let's copy a few D-beams. A bridge in Iowa typically has beam spacing of anywhere from 7 feet to 9 feet. So it depends how wide your bridge is. So let's move this and go 7-foot spacing. Let's see here. So if I just grab the move tool, it'll just move. But if I hit control while I'm moving it, it'll make a copy. And I want to go 28 feet. So 28 with the little foot thing. And it's out there. And while everything is still going, you can hit the backslash and go 4, and now I have all these beams at 7-foot spacing on center. Now they're all components, the D-beams, so I can click on one, doesn't matter which one, and I can just pull it as long as I grab the face and say I want it to be 100 foot long. So now I've got a bridge beam, 7-foot spacing, which is pretty typical. They're components, and I can put on a deck. If you just grab the rectangle and go one end to one end and then pull it up. Oops, I can undo that, Control Z. Let's pull it up and let's type in anything, but typically bridge decks in Iowa are 8 inches thick. And typically they have a 2 to 3 foot overhang. Let's make it 36 inches. 36 inches. And I would probably select the deck by double clicking on it and right click and make it a group so it doesn't stick to anything. If I put anything else on it, it doesn't stick to it. It's an individual group. Well, that was a really quick bridge, and we could put some abutments where typically ends of the bridges. We could put a pier here and then put another span. I mean, you could just select everything in this window. Even the picture, I don't need it, but you could copy it and make yourself a typical bridge that just keeps spanning and spanning and spanning, right? Well, I hope you learned something about D-beams and concrete bridges.